Hey everybody, welcome back to our show. This is Aaron Trevino, and in today's episode, we have Eric Mendenhall from the Pacific Northwest. He has a really extensive background in the real estate business, is an excellent storyteller, and I'm looking forward to having him on the show. Eric, pleasure to sit down with you and chat. How you doing this evening?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on this evening. Great to talk with you. Yeah,
Absolutely, absolutely. I know we were chatting a little bit before about a few different things you've done in the real estate business, and I always find it fascinating when someone isn't just honing their craft in one side of the business, but it seems like you have an extensive background in a lot of different parts. So if you could introduce yourself and what you do and what you're looking forward to this year.
absolutely. Well, again, my name is Eric Mendenhall. I'm in the Northwest here, specifically in the state of Oregon, and I started my real estate career as a broker in 1987. And I came on board like most agents. I was going through the motions where I was maybe doing two or three transactions, and I came across my broker that I went to work for back in 1987, or excuse me, 1989. And His name is Bob Haskins, wonderful man. And I proceeded to work for him for almost 17 years. Within that time frame of working, one of the upsides of working for him was that he did extensive lead generation. And so, what I mean by that is, and again, this is kind of dating myself, so we're talking pre-internet here. But we did advertise on the radio, and we advertised on a Christian radio station. That was a major lead generation for us. We also advertised on TV. We also did advertising there, and we also advertised in our local publication or newspaper. One of the things we were able to do is advertise our fees, which really caught a lot of people's attention, and that's part of why we did very well. I would also I want to also point out I don't say this in any way to boast myself. I'm a really humble kind of guy. But in that career, I've done about 800 transactions. Being on the listing, I was a listing specialist, and that was one of many things that my broker drilled into me. Is he said, if you're going to be a broker, be on the listing side. Do not chase buyers, and that's exactly what I did. Though I did work with buyers, my main emphasis was controlling property, and that was what I did was control property. And it was very interesting working with other agents. We were not well received in this market because we were considered a threat, and we were actually taking market share in my local market because of it. And so I think a lot of brokers thought we were a threat, that we were going to tear down the good old boy club. That we were not part of that. And I really enjoyed, on one hand, we were kind of the black sheep, so to speak. We were not well received. Not that that mattered, but I really unfortunately saw a not so good side of agents and what they did in terms of their manipulation with money and their commissions and stuff like that. So that's a complete different story, and I won't digress any farther than that. I worked for him until about 2008, and the market was changing at that point. Of course, we know the crash in 2008, and I stepped into becoming a full-time investor. I let my license go, and I went in to specialize in actually working in probates, and I got really good at it. In my three counties, main counties in the Portland area specifically, I would go around to each of those counties and actually get all the information. I knew how to look at the files and what I was looking for. I could profile them very quickly, and I would decide if I was going to market to that particular one. There were certain reasons why I wouldn't pursue certain, and again, that's a more extensive conversation. But so I did that for about 4 years, and then took a break from it and kind of stepped away from it because the market was changing, even though yes, it was increasing, doing well in 2010. And I stepped away from it for a period of time. Even though I was still doing it, I just was not as active. I decided to get my broker's license back in 2013 and held on to about 2017 and just decided I was done with brokering, and I will probably never go back to get my license because I like being on the investing side. So fast forward, I'm a full-time investor. Specifically, I wholesale properties. I have a very extensive CRM that I use that can I use data to my advantage. And what I do is I can profile any city in the United States. What I'm looking for specifically is there are boom and bust cities, and then there are easy profit cities. And what do I mean by that? Boom or bust are ones that peak up very high and then come crashing down. All on the West Coast, Seattle, Portland, LA, Sacramento, etc., San Francisco are considered boom bust cities. They go up and they rapidly come down. What I look at is I try to target those more price stable markets. And so what do we mean by that is markets that don't fluctuate way up and way down. And so they're more price stable. And the reason why is because those are easier to penetrate. So right now, as we speak, as of today's this recording, I'm in the Ohio market, specifically in Cincinnati, Dayton, and I'm also looking to go possibly into Cleveland. But those are the areas that I concentrate on. One of the tools that I use is within 20 seconds, I can pull up all the top zip codes of where the investors are investing to target where am I going to put my marketing dollars into. And then I hone in. And again, there's some more specific things we don't have time to talk about to identify what are the best markets. So I maximize my marketing dollars to go in rather than doing the shotgun. It's very laser targeted. And I can do that in any city in the United States and have that assessment as to who is buying and what zip codes and what the top ones are. And so it's using data to my advantage, if you will. So I'm not just winging it and saying, well, I'll just go pick this city. No, there's a reason why I'm targeting these markets. So it's not just that, well, that one sounds good or that's in my backyard or those type of things. So it's very specific. So anyway, long story short, that's just a little brief background as to where I'm coming from. So do you have any other any things you want to expand on here?
Sure. I was just curious, what makes a neighborhood good to invest in, right? Because I guess the CRM can spit out whatever it wants, but is it more about, is it tracking the number of people who are moving there per year or annual income, or what exactly are the metrics that makes for a good neighborhood to invest in?
Um, Part of what I'm looking at is the population. Population is really important because obviously if you go into a 50,000 person smaller city, those are much more difficult to penetrate. So I look at, to see if there's at least 700,000 or larger is my first matrix to that. I'm also profiling to see where the investors are actually investing, specifically zip codes. So if in the top 10 zip codes in any city, specifically, let's say Dayton, I'm going to target those top 10 zip codes. And then from there, look at what is actually selling the price range. Um, I want to also add in when you're looking at price stable markets, I go up to about $250,000. So that's kind of my cap. I will go up higher than that. But when you look at when I'm wholesaling to end buyers, I'm also keeping them in mind because as a wholesaler, I always have to keep my end buyer as to what are they buying. I have to get in their head and say, what are they going to buy? What are they willing to pay for? What neighborhood are they looking for? And how much are they willing to pay for it? It has been my experience that when you're working in five and ten and $15,000 homes, by the way, there's a ton of them in the Midwest and the East Coast. They're all over the place. They're much more challenging because I have found consistently there's not only it does the house need major rehab, but there's typically a lot of back taxes that are involved with that. So if you have to buy it, so for example, I try to buy 70 cents or lower to the dollar is what my offers are. Now, again, adding into it, if I'm looking at as a buy and hold that an end landlord would buy, they're going to pay more. They're going to look at the sell price, but they're more looking at cash flow. So I have to look at a fix and flip versus a landlord and what are they willing to pay for it because understanding and I can get a profile within a neighborhood within a zip code. Is it owner occupied? What is the percentage of owner occupied versus investors in there? So you have A, B, C, and D neighborhoods, and I'm assessing on Google Maps or Google Street View. I can go in and I can go up the street, and if you see boarded up homes, vacant properties, a lot of dilapidation, it's a good, probably safe to say it's a D neighborhood. I kind of have a tendency to stay away from those and stay in the C and B because that's where the sweet spot is for most investors. Particularly, you can have buy and hold and also wholesalers. So I hope I'm kind of answering your question. This is a kind of a broad question. We could talk hours, and I don't want to waste your time on that, but I'm just trying to give you a Reader's Digest of what I'm doing. So there's a systematic way that I'm looking at in any neighborhood. So it's not like I said, I'm just throwing a dart at the dartboard and saying, "Oh, that's a." No, I'm actually looking at the data and analyzing, saying, where are investors buying? Where are the motivated sellers? Because we have to look at investors, the end buyer, but we also have to look at motivated sellers. So what do we mean by motivated sellers? That would be vacant, some form of distress, vacant, um, high equity. You could look at code violations, divorce, their probate, for example. There's a lot of reasons why there may be perceived distress. So I'm profiling what is the zip code and how many homes are available of vacant properties, mainly vacant and tired landlords that are in that zip code. And if they're way out of proportion, so in other words, in Columbus, Ohio, I haven't checked in the last couple of months, there is so hyperinflated in there that sellers can basically get their retail price for it because there's so much competition, so many buyers buying, but there's so little inventory. It makes it very difficult to buy it right, if you will. And again, I'm looking to discount it unless you have a seller that says, I'm willing to take payments over time. So that's a terms deal. And if that's a terms deal, then you could pay more for the home. But because my primary focus is wholesaling, I need to get it at a certain price. That's what I'm doing. But let me point out that ultimately, though I do have to make a living, I do want to make a profit, it is to serve others. I want to make that very clear. I'm not there to just make a quick buck and be out of there. No, I'm ultimately there to solve problems. That's what I do. And that's what any wholesaler, any broker, anybody's do is to solve problems. And those people that can solve problems win. I mean, you're if you can solve problems and do it well, you win. You can make a really good living, fantastic living actually doing it. But it's a matter of penetrating. The market is changing right now with Trump being coming into office next week. It's going to be interesting to see where the market goes. I don't know. There are some interesting indicators that I don't know. It's hard to say, but you just do the best you can today, and that's all you can, and move forward with it. And whatever happens, happens. So yeah.
Sure. Out of curiosity, and that's kind of where I was curious as well, is really just how the past few years have gone, right? Years ago, a number of years ago, people were making money, and it was a wild market, and people had money to spend, and things have kind of cooled off and kind of changed their tone the past few years. How do you think end buyers' criteria for buying have changed in the past 2 years?
Well, let me clarify your question there. Let me just dissect it just ever so slightly here. When you look at the overall real estate market, approximately 95% of your buying market are retail buyers. Let me clarify that. I don't typically work with retail buyers. I work with investor buyers that are looking for discounts. So I wanted to clarify that because if we make that broad statement, I can't really say from a retail buyer point of view. I think the market is cooling down, but that's not who I target. I'm targeting in investor buyers that are looking for either cash flow or they're fix and flip type people. And so with that, you have only roughly 5 to 7% of the market that are actually investors. Um, I think to answer your question, it is cooling off, and indicators are that a lot of markets are starting to cool down. That can be great opportunities if you are able to get on board with taking advantage of that. And what do I mean by that is if I'm looking to build a portfolio of rentals, I want to be in a boom or bust market. In other words, ride the market up, sell at the peak. As the market comes crashing down, hopefully you get out, and that's where you make your profit. In a price stable market, you're not going to see those kind of appreciations like you would in a boom bust market. So, from that perspective, you can still enjoy great cash flow because as an investor, as a landlord, you're always looking for cash flow. What is your cash flow? And that's very individual. That's a very individual thing because somebody may be okay with making a $300 profit a month, while others may want 12 or 15 or $2,000. And I want to also, I didn't add into this, I primarily concentrate on single residential. I want to clarify that. So I'm not into multifamily. So multifamily, the numbers change. They're obviously going to increase. You're over, everything about it changes when you get into multifamily, get into commercial properties. So single residential is what I'm talking about. Though I do like multifamily, single residential has the broadest appeal. Everyone likes being into a single residential. Though apartment buildings can work and they can be very viable, they're just not as easy to liquidate. So the market starts pummeling down quickly. You just can't offload an apartment building nearly as quickly as you can with a single residential. It just doesn't happen. It can, but it's not. And understand, I'm talking generalities. Whenever you go into any market, they have always those little nuances, those always little things that you have to learn within that individual market. And it's very important once you work a market, you get a feel for investments and what people are paying and that type of thing. But most of what I do is 200,000 and below. That's basically the price range. 50 to about 200,000 is where I work out in price range. Not to say that I wouldn't work in a 3 or 4, 500,000 or higher, but it doesn't make sense from a rental standpoint, from a cash flow standpoint, to get into those higher price range because the rent has to be offset to justify a $600,000 purchase price on a single residential. To me, doesn't make sense. Other people, that may be fine. They may be totally okay with that. That's just not my bread and butter at all. So anyway, hopefully I answered your question on that one.
Sure, that makes a lot of sense. And out of
Okay.
curiosity, where do you think we're heading in the real estate market these next few years with the new administration, the potentially new economy coming up? What do you make of these next few years in real estate?
That's a good question. I wish I was an oracle where I had my crystal ball and I could see what's going to happen in the future. But with what the dollar is doing right now, with what the economy is doing, what we are experiencing globally, we could be looking at some serious reset in terms of our economy and the dollar. I have heard for a few years that we may be totally going to, well, I haven't heard. I know we're going to eventually go to a gold based economy, gold backed dollar, and the dollar's going to go to the wayside. How is that going to impact real estate? I don't know right at this point. I am looking at certain matrix and certain uh, things that are indicating what the market is doing because I have one of my things that I look at. One of the matrix I look at is to look at and profile 400 markets in the United States, and I'm looking to see if they're going up and the downtrends. So there's two different software programs that I'm using to look at what the market is saying is going to do. So to answer your question, I'm sorry to ramble on. It's really to me hard to say because of the unknown of what we're going to do with the new administration, what the market is going to, or I should say, the dollar is going to, where that's going to go. Are we going to collapse completely? Um, I think personally that it's going to be with the new administration. We couldn't get any worse than what it was. Let's put it that way. This last 4 years is absolutely appalling what has been going on there, but that's here or there. But I think we couldn't get any worse. I think our new president probably is going to do some good things, but it's yet to be determined. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm always curious just because I guess for me it's different because I've only seen a few different real estate cycles, right? I mean, when I was in high school, I remember what happened in 2008, but I didn't have firsthand experience because I didn't have any skin in the game.
Sure.
Whereas for someone who's been in the business for a long time, it's neat that you've seen so many cycles over time, and I'm just curious about your perspective of what's to come for us.
If you were to ask me that question 10 years ago, I probably have a greater, more perspective on that because there's so many unknowns right now. It's hard to say. I wish I could say, yeah, 2 years from now, it's going to be this or it's going to be that. Well, it may not be. I mean, it absolutely may not be. And there's some unknowns right now that's hard to say. I'm an optimistic type person. I like to think for the best. I plan for the worst, but I also think we need to be positive and think that things are going to turn out okay, which most likely they are. But we may go through some troubled times here in the next few months. It's just interesting to what with all the dynamics of what's going on in the world, not just here in the United States, but globally, there are just some really interesting things, good and bad, that's going on in this market. So, again, I wish I could be more specific than that, but that's just where I'm at right now. So, yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. And what are you looking forward to in the I know you don't have a crystal ball, but just on the real estate front, the single family front, the the wholesaling front, really in what you do in your line of work, what are you looking forward to?
I'm looking, honestly, this sounds like a maybe contrived answer or canned effort, but to serve more people. That's really my driver here. Also, when you serve people and you do a good job and you make win-win situations, you can definitely increase your income exponentially if you're doing it right. And that's really what it is to serve more people because I think I'm in a line right now, unless the market absolutely pulls out, the real estate market just pummels down. I mean, we're talking 40, 50, 60% losses. Um, I still think I'm going to do very well in this because of the markets that I'm working in. I want to add into one of the great things of doing this virtually. The United States is my oyster. I'm not locked into my local market. And if the market indicators here locally show me that it's good to come into it, I'll absolutely come back to this market. But right now, it's not. It's 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 not a good market right now. My local market, I know that's way in West Coast and like in Denver. Again, some of those markets right now are just they're just not good markets right now. And to try to compete in my local market means that my advertising dollars will have to increase exponentially. To get a deal is going to be that much harder. It's going to take longer, and it just takes more advertising dollars to ultimately get that deal. If you go into a more price stable market, you can target and maximize your advertising dollars to tone. And what I'm talking, it's like very laser targeted these zip codes. I'm not just winging it, so to speak, but it makes it easier, faster to get to a deal because you don't have to spend as much as opposed to these other markets. And I know I could easily spend $20,000 or more here in my local market to get one deal. And the question is, what kind of margin are you going to make if you have to spend 20,000 to get to one deal? Now, it is potential you can make a substantial amount of money, but those deals are far and few between, and it doesn't make sense. Our average price here locally is about $400,000. That's the average price. That's crazy. When I started back in '87, the average sale price was 10, 12, 15, $20,000. No, it wasn't that low. It was a little higher than that, but it was much more affordable. But you could find $5 and $10,000 homes around here, but those left in the late '80s. They just don't exist around here. More like 400 to 600,000 would be average. So I'm just referring to my local market, and I would rather not. I would rather go in, use my laptop, be able to go in, and interesting. All it is laptop and on the phone call and advertising. I talk on the phone, and so I can do this anywhere. What I want is the lifestyle. That's what I want. I don't want to have to go to a job. I don't have to physically drive. So I work out of my house, out of my home office. It's a great way to do business. It's not like I used to do business where it's face to face, but I can pick up the phone and talk to somebody, negotiate a deal, and send them the paperwork. They sign it, set up the through the title company, and boom. Uh, I want to also add in one of the things that I failed to mention, getting back to targeting motivated sellers. I'm also in that part of the subsection of looking at zip codes is also looking at those cash buyers. And when I look at the zip codes, I'm also looking at how many I can see through my software program, any cash buyer and how many properties they own. And if you're looking at somebody that owns two, three, four, 500 or more rentals, and they've been buying and they're actually buying two, three, four a month, those are the people that I target in terms of cash buyers. those are the ones that I want to work with because once you know exactly what they're buying, it just becomes all you got to do is text them and say, "Hey, I got this home sold." Boom, put the paperwork. Boom. It makes it really easy, but it's also establishing those relationships, and those are really important to have. And those are great when you have those cash buyers that you have that relationship with, and you can just send those off. Boom. I can say that if you find a really good cash buyer that is actively buying, it's a six-figure income. One of them is a six-figure income, low six-figure all day long. If you find the right cash buyer and you have a great relationship with them, it's a six-figure income all day long because they'll buy one or two a month, one or two a month, on and on and on. And I can't say what other people's averages are, but $7,000 to $10,000 is a typical fee, but it could be a little way less. It could be substantially more. So it's averages of what you would make on the spread. And as an investor, it's kind of like brokering. I buy for Y, I sell for X, and I make the spread in between. That's kind of like brokering, but I'm not representing anybody. I just represent myself. But I also bring in a sense of integrity in what I'm doing. It's very important. I don't want to make win-lose situations for people because I'm into this for the long haul. And I know there's a lot of shysters out there, and to each his own. People that are, want to screw people over, and that happens. But that's not what I'm about. I'm here to make win-win situations. And if I know of something, I'm working with a cash buyer, I will always tell them about what I know about the property. This happened, this happened, this happened. Because if you are honest with them up front, you know things, and you're trying to hide it. No, no, no. You just maybe can burn a bridge with people. So anyway, yeah,
Sure, that makes a lot of sense. I guess you're experiencing the beauty of the work from home revolution, right? Whereas,
yes,
back in the day you
yes,
had to maybe report to an office or be more client facing, whereas now, you're able to send documents, have it go to title, and that's it, call it a day.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Sure.
It's
Is there anything that you haven't said thus far, Eric, that you'd really just like to hit home for our audience?
um, I can't think of anything specific. I'm sure once we get off here, I'll think of a 20 dozen things. That's
That
uh,
happens too.
it
That's
always
all right.
it always seems to happen. Well, I should have said that, or why did I say that, or whatever. Um, I would say this, though my audience doesn't know me personally, they don't know who I am. I'm always there to help. I'm always there to assist people the best I can. And I have a group of people that I work with within my software program. We are all there's about a dozen of us, plus the owner of the company that I dip into it. So it's not like I'm a lone wolf, and we help each other out, and we're under their coaching program, if you will. And it's a very dynamic group of people that are in there, and I'm always able to. And all the people are working in their own individual markets, so we can communicate with one another. What about this? Or do you have a lead here, or whatever? And it's really nice to have that connection with other people. But to get back to your question, I can't think of anything specific. I nothing comes to mind. I hope this is sufficient enough, but yeah, yeah.
Sure thing. That's perfect, Eric. It's been a pleasure. I know at the beginning of the show I was impressed by your background, just you doing so many different things in the business and seeing the brokerage aspect and then also getting into the wholesaling and just the way that you're very methodical about what you do. I truly admire that.
Well, thank you for that. I appreciate it. Absolutely.
Absolutely, Eric. Guys, we're going to sign off here. Eric Mendenhall from the Pacific Northwest. We will have his information in the description of the video. So if you're looking for, if you're an end buyer looking for any sort of deals, maybe in the Midwest, I know we talked about that on the show, or any other market across America, we'll have Eric's information, and we will talk to y'all later.
Thank you very much.